What's up, people? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining me. So today we're going to talk about DJ terminology, all the slang. So this is my goal with this video. I want this to be the go-to source for pretty much every word we use in the community. You know, if you're a beginner DJ or, you know, maybe there's just a couple words that you're not sure of, you just want to go through and see if you know all the lingo, see if you're dialed in. This video is going to be for you. Now, just so you know, I spent the last 2 weeks trying to think of every possible term ever. I also reached out to my friends. I reached out to the DJ community with like Facebook groups and all that stuff. I wrote everything down. I appreciate anybody who gave their advice or any terms they could think of. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to organize this into 4 categories with timestamps below so you can skip. The first category is going to be terminology that has to do with performance. Then we're going to go into gear terminology, then music terminology, and then finally a couple scratch terminologies, just, different scratch words and basically what they mean. And DJs, of course, if you go through this whole video and there's a term I missed somewhere, put it in the comments below. Let the people know. I want this to be the resource, especially for the more beginner DJs. I want to make sure we got everything in there so they don't have to have, feel left out or feel stupid if they don't know what something means. I'm one of those guys where I always felt awkward asking
hey, what do you mean by that?
So without further ado, let's talk about terminology that has to do with performance. We'll start off with a good one. Number 1 is train wreck. Train wreck refers to a really, really bad performance in a lot of different ways. You can train wreck your intros at a wedding if you're emceeing. You can train wreck a mix. If it didn't go the way you wanted it to go, if it didn't sound good at the end of the day, anything you do performance-wise that is a mess up, train wreck is another word for that. Now, if you're wondering what a bar doesn't refer to where you drink. It refers to a 4-beat count. 4 beats equal 1 bar. It could be at a multiple different speeds, but essentially 1 bar is 4 beats like this. So if you hear a DJ say, for example, a song has an 8-bar chorus, he's referring that the song has a chorus that goes for 64 beats because each bar is 4 beats. The term juggle is a technique where DJs take the same song on both sides, each platter, and then they mix it back and forth, creating a loop. A lot of times DJs do 4 bars, 2 bars, 1 bars. There's lots of different techniques with it, but the essence of it is creating a loop of the same song. This was made popular a very, very long time ago and was a big part of how hip hop was created because they were able to take samples and parts of songs and looping them by juggling it back and forth with turntables to make a complete beat for the MCs to rap over. Hitting the post or posting the vocal is a term that actually came from radio, but it's something a lot of MCs do. It's an MC term, and it basically means that you're going to MC and speak, whatever you want to talk, whatever situation you're in, over the instrumental part of the song, and you're going to be done before the words come into the song. So you're posting the vocal. If you post the vocal correctly, you finish what you have to say before the word and the actual nuts and bolts of the song come in. Peak hour is a common term, basically means the climax of the night. Whether you're DJing a club, private event, or whatever, generally speaking, there's usually a peak hour of every type of event where that hour is when the most people are going to be there, the most people are dancing, everything, and then it kind of peaks down, right? It goes like a up the hill, down the hill kind of thing. Even at private events, people a lot of times leave early. They might leave with an hour left, a half hour left. So there's going to be less people that last hour than during the peak hour. Peak hour is when you play all your bangers. That is the main part of dancing. That is the most important part of your dance set, in mine and most DJs' opinions. A cold stop refers to just stopping the music out of nowhere. You're just stopping it. There's no effects. There's no reverb, which we'll get into in a second. There's no anything. You just stop it cold, dead air instantly. We're going to get to that too. You just stop it. It's just a cold stop, just like you would think. Now, since we're on the subject, dead air means no music playing. There's nothing. There's silence. There's crickets. There's those metaphorical crickets. Dead air is a DJ's worst nightmare. They refer to dead air. It means there's no music. It's usually when something goes out or something happened or, just whatever. Whatever happens, there's dead air. You don't want dead air. Dead air's bad. A wordplay is a creative mixing technique that a lot of DJs use to get from one song to the other using common words. So if one song has a common phrase with another song, you use those two phrases in conjunction somehow, some way where it makes it translate to the next song. So you mix using those words. A tone play is another creative way to mix that's really been made popular by like 4-Color Zach and the early 3-Style era days, where you use different tones of one song to actually remix it to make it sound like another song. It works great when like two songs are in the same key and they have like similar instruments and stuff, and you can actually put cue points on certain tones that you want to play independently, and you use that, play them independently, try and create a melody of another song with those tones. Crossfade or crossfading is a DJ technique where you mix from one song into another by bringing the volume of one song down and bringing the volume of the other song up. So it's a smooth transition. You can also do this with the crossfader, which is the fader in the middle of the mixer, and it basically does it for you. It transfers the sound over evenly for you from one channel to the next. Beat mixing or beat matching is a mixing technique where you take two songs and you adjust them to the same BPM and you layer them over top of each other so they're playing at the same tempo and they're playing in unison together. Pitch ride or riding the pitch is a mixing technique where you basically use the pitch fader to help you mix and keep the songs lined up, bringing it up and down and, just basically adjusting it so it keeps it on beat when you're beat mixing. This was very, very popular back in the day where you couldn't tell what the BPM was and everything, especially with real vinyl. You kind of ride it and you kind of figure it out and feel it out that way. Nowadays with technology and you can see what the BPM is on your computer screen with Serato or whatever DJ program you use. Really not a useful technique, but it's still something that's done a lot with DJs that started with vinyl, especially the OG guys. You'll see them still doing it just because, they've been mixing like that their whole lives. Shoes in a dryer is a fun one. That means you are messing up a beat mix. So if you ever heard shoes in a dryer, and it's basically like da-dum, da-dum, da-dum. Same kind of thing. If you're trying to beat mix two songs together and they're not lining up, they're going to sound da-dum, da-dum like a shoes in a dryer. So it just refers to a DJ messing up a beat mix. Backspin is a technique where DJs take the platter and they spin it backwards in reverse, causing it to make that iconic DJ sound. Throwing darts may not just be a DJ term, but in the DJ world, it means you're just kind of playing different songs from different genres, trying to figure out what the crowd likes in front of you. If you're not sure, you're going to play a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, until you get the right reaction and you know where to go from there. Harmonic mixing or mixing in key refers to when you mix two songs together, you're mixing them in key, in unison. So each song is either in the same scale or in the same key, so it sounds good harmonically when you mix them together. DJs do this by using the Camelot wheel or the traditional system if you're an actual musician and you know how to read music and all that good stuff. Nudging the platter is a mixing technique where basically the song's a little bit behind and you nudge the platter up and you speed it up just a little bit so it basically goes in sync when you're beat mixing two songs together. Squeezing the spindle refers to grabbing the little nipple in the middle of the vinyl, usually to slow down the song. It's a mixing technique typically with vinyl DJs, people that use turntables, so they can kind of match up the beats and beat match correctly. Not get that shoes in the dryer, you know what I'm talking about? Ducking refers to bringing the volume down of a song. You may want to do this if you have an MC and they're MCing, or MCs do that themselves sometimes. They'll reach over, you see them touching the volume knobs and stuff with the DJ's mixer. They're ducking the song. They're bringing the volume down so they can speak over it, and then they bring the volume back up, so it doesn't affect the dance floor. Ducking is usually temporary. You just do it real quick while you're MCing and you bring it right back up. On the one or mixing on the one or dropping it on the one refers to dropping the song right at the beginning of the song. Bam! Like usually you do that with songs that have like a great intro, like Lean Back by Fat Joe or Hot in Here by Nelly. Really recognizable intros. You want to drop those on the one because everyone's going to, realize what song it is and kind of like, woo, and be excited about it and that sort of thing. So dropping it on the one is just a hard drop. You're just dropping it right when it begins. No mixing, nothing. Phrasing or having proper phrasing basically refers to when you're mixing, you having your timing right. A lot of DJs like to basically have the chorus done when the next song comes in, so it just all flows correctly. There's a lot of different ways to obviously phrasing songs together and mixing it, but it generally refers to the timing of mixing, and it's one of the most important parts of our job. Dropout means the volume just goes out, usually unexpected, out of nowhere. If a DJ says that, wow, I was DJing last night and all of a sudden the song dropped out, that means the volume just cut out and there was dead air, like we talked about earlier, for a period of time. Format refers to what to play. What's the format of the room? What's the format of the event? What's the format of this club? What should I play there? Is it a hip hop club? Is it an EDM club? Is it, a little bit of everything? Now, if it's a little bit of everything, that is open format. Open format means you're playing whatever the hell you want. Whatever you feel like playing, you play. And, there is an art to DJing open format because like transitioning from one genre to another is difficult. To really make it make sense and work, it takes a lot of practice and whatnot. And open format DJing, of course, was made very, very famous by DJ AM, the late DJ AM. If you haven't heard of him, look him up. All his mixes are super open format. You'll find that he goes from every single genre, like literally goes through every single genre in his mixes. It's crazy. He was, in my opinion, the best, still is. RIP DJ AM. Quick mixing means to mix quick. It's pretty much that simple. Usually when DJs quick mix or say they're quick mixing, they're usually only playing a chorus only or just first verse and chorus, or at the most, I would say 2 verses and 2 choruses. It refers to not playing the entire song and mixing out before the song is done. Long mixing is the opposite of quick mixing, and it refers to playing the whole song in its entirety before you mix out and go to the next. Now let's talk about gear, people. So first up is 1200s, Techs or Techniques. They're all nicknames for the Technique 1200 turntables. They were the standard for many, 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 many years. Still to this day, some people argue. A lot of people still use them to this day, and they're widely considered the best turntable ever made in the history of turntables. A slip mat refers to the felt little rug kind of thing that goes underneath the vinyl on a turntable that makes it slippery so it's easier to scratch with. A tone arm is a balanced arm that sticks out of the turntable that has the needle at the end of it that allows it to read the record and play the record. On the opposite end of the tone arm is a weight, and it's a counterweight system, so it kind of balances the needle with just enough pressure on the record so it can play it properly without hurting the needle or the record. Of course, the needle is the thing that goes on the actual record. You may hear terms like M447. That is made by Shure. It was discontinued a few years ago, but that was the standard for many, many years. Ortofon is another type of needle, and there's a bunch of knockoffs as well, but generally speaking, those are the best scratch needles. The pitch fader is a fader that's located on the turntable or a mixer controller where it adjusts the BPM of the song. DVS refers to a digital vinyl system. It was made popular, invented by Serato. Now multiple programs have it. You can do it with Traktor, you can do it with Virtual DJ, you can do it with Rekordbox, and it basically allows you to use the same 2 vinyls all day without switching them and play MP3s on them, because each vinyl has a proprietary control tone that the needle reads, and the computer interprets that tone to figure out what you're doing with the record. So when you manipulate the record, the computer program can interpret that to what it would actually sound like with real vinyl and then digitize it and then make it happen. So it's pretty cool. It's a great technology that came out in the 2000s that allowed DJs to still use real vinyl and real needles and the real setup, but without having to bring out all the crates and switch out, a vinyl every time they play a new song, essentially. Phase is the brand name to the newest technology in the DVS world, where it allows you to use DVS with any program with vinyl, right, with turntables, only without the needles. It does so with a wireless connection via Bluetooth. Battle style is a term that refers to how you set up your turntables. In battle style, the turntable is turned 90 degrees, so the pitch fader is located on top instead of on the side, and it's made popular and is very popular among battle style DJs that do DMC competitions, Red Bull 3 styles, that sort of thing. Or any DJ that just likes battle style better too. I mean, you don't have to do those competitions to use battle style, but that's kind of where it came from. Okay, you get it. The 1s and 2s, it's a very popular DJ term. If you don't know what that means, it basically refers to channel 1, channel 2, and it's something that was made popular many, many, many years ago. They'll say something like, hey, we got so-and-so on the 1s and 2s, it just means you're DJing. Refers to the DJ setup. XLR is a very popular and widely used cable for microphones or speakers. It's pretty much the standard for most DJs. And while we're on the subject of wires, there's also RCAs, 1/4 inches, and 1/8 inch cords, or, headphone cords. You could say it's the same thing, just like a headphone. Got all pictures right here, in case you're wondering. Sync is a technology that assists DJs with mixing. In some programs, sync just matches the BPM from one channel to the other, from one song to the other, which saves you time so you can mix quicker and maybe accomplish some things that you wouldn't be able to if you had to adjust the BPM with the pitch fader. In some programs, not only will sync match the BPM, but it'll also match the beats, so it'll layer the songs on top of each other for you, so it'll basically kind of line it up so it's all in unison and mixed for you. Timecode refers to the vinyl that you use with any DVS system, and all timecodes are essentially vinyl that has the proprietary control tone on it for the entire time, which allows you to use the DVS system with whatever DJ program you're working with. Daisy chain refers to linking different types of equipment together. It's usually the same equipment, multiple of them. A lot of times you do it with lights. You can daisy chain different lights so they all do the same thing. You can also daisy chain different speakers so they're all playing the same thing, and it allows you to have multiple of one thing without having to have all the inputs for it because you're just extending it with a daisy chain. Gobo is a common term referred to monograms. This can be done a million different ways, but if you hear gobo, they basically mean words on the wall somewhere. Tempo range refers to just a range of tempo. When it comes to like a pitch fader, they're referring to how much it can speed up or slow down the song. SL box refers to the original sound card box that you would need to use the digital vinyl system when it came out back in the day. There was many different types that came out along the last few years, but to my knowledge, most of them are kind of discontinued and can't really use it with like Serato or Record Box anymore. I mean, there might be like one or two, but it's kind of like an outdated technology because the same technology that was in the SL box is now built into most mixers. Latency when it comes to DJing is essentially digital delay. When you're DJing with real vinyl, for example, there's no latency because it's an analog system. Latency really refers to when you're digitally DJing with a controller and a computer, DVS systems, anything like that, and it's basically the delay from whatever you do on the mixer and on the turntables, if you're scratching or if you're playing a song, how long it takes for what you did to make it out through the speakers. And most, especially with newer technology, there's not a lot of latency, so it might be milliseconds, of a delay. You won't even notice it with the human ear, but back in the day, it definitely made a big difference because, you'll scratch a song and then a second later, then you'll hear it happen, or a second later you'll see it happen on the computer screen. It's basically how the mixer is connected to the computer and then how fast it goes out to the actual speakers. That's your latency. Lower latency, the better. The faster computer you have, the lower you can set your latency in your DJ computers, and I recommend you do that. A line array is a kind of speaker shown right here where it's basically like a horizontal speaker. They're basically used in bigger productions, concerts and stuff like that, but there are consumer grade ones and they have a different dispersion, different kind of sound, and some DJs really like them. Column array is also a kind of speaker like right here, vertical, so it goes up and down instead of horizontal, and very, very common and popular with like smaller setups with DJs, and they make bigger ones as well, but it's just a different kind of speaker that sounds a little different, that fills a room and disperses a little different, and it's, definitely based on preference, what you like best. I guess while we're talking about speakers, here's your traditional speaker. This has a horn and a sub and everything in that. This would be more traditional. So you got your line array, your column array, and then your traditional speaker. Feedback is a loud screeching noise that commonly happens with microphones, but can happen with a lot of other things. It basically makes an interference type noise that can really mess up your mix or mess up, whatever you're doing on a PA system. But it commonly happens with microphones when a microphone is facing a speaker and it's too close. Basically, the speaker is pumping out a volume, the microphone's picking up the volume, it's going back out through the speaker, and then it goes back until it creates a crazy sound that you never want to hear again for the rest of your life. DMX refers to lighting mainly, and it's basically hooking the lights up together so they work in unison so you can control them live from one central location. Key lock is a popular feature in most DJ programs where it locks the key, so if you speed up or slow down the song, it doesn't affect the tone, the key, the scale that the song's in. If you've slowed down or sped up a song on a turntable traditionally, it'll and it does that crazy thing. Key lock prevents that, so it still sounds like the same song, only just a little faster. And for the record, Serato's key lock, which is called Pitch and Time, best in the business. Just saying. Redlining refers to the lights on the mixer. Lights on the mixer typically have a stoplight looking thing where it's green, yellow, red. When you're redlining, you're hitting the red and you're basically peaking the mixer, peaking the sound system. You're at max volume. You're all the way up. You've turned it up to the gods. All right, now it's time for music, people. Now, first of all, crates. Crates refers originally were milk crates. That's what you would carry records in. Milk crates when you had milkmen and they delivered milk back in the day. They just happened to be the perfect size to put records in, and they were really popular for carrying records around. So that's kind of where crates came into play as DJs. But later on now, with DJ programs, crates are just basically your folders of music. It refers to any folder, any type of way you have your music. It could be a crate of real CDs or real vinyl, or it could be a crate of digital music. It's just a folder or some kind of place where you store your music. Now, if you hear somebody say deep crates, they're basically referring to having a lot of music. Think of like a drawer that's really deep and they can fit a lot of stuff. Like, yo, my crates are deep. Like, I got a ton of music. Like, that's basically what they're referring to. If they say like deep bag, same meaning really, deep crates, deep bag. They could also be referring to just the fact that they have a lot of music that most people don't have, or they play a lot of music that most people don't play. If you say a DJ, man, he had such a deep bag, it's crazy. You're really referring to what he was playing, the content of what he was playing. It's like, wow, I never would have thought to play that, or just stuff I never heard of in general. You're not playing the common top 40 hits. Sound bite is just a clip of sound. So it could be a sample, it could be, and a sample is just like also a clip of sound. It's just another word for it. It's not a complete song. It's just a little bit. Camelot wheel is something that many DJs use built into their DJ programs to help them mix harmonically. B-side or playing B-side tracks, it originally came from vinyl, or I guess tape cassettes too, where, you flip the vinyl over, it's side B, there's side A and side B. But if someone says like,
Man, he was playing like all these B-side records. It was crazy.
He's referring to just playing a lot of songs that weren't necessarily on the radio, that aren't big hits, that they're more like deep records, because he has a deep bag, going back to that term. BPM is an acronym that stands for beats per minute. It literally means how many beats are in a minute of a track, but it's a terminology that DJs use to, judge how fast a track is. How many BPMs are in that track? How many BPMs are you playing? That's like how fast the tempo of the tracks you're mixing are. Banger is one of my favorite terms ever. It could mean you're playing a banger song, right? So it's a great song, a song you would play peak hour like we talked earlier, right? One of the best songs for the dance floor. I dropped a banger on the dance floor. Or it can refer to like an entire gig, that whole gig was a banger. That wedding was a banger. The club, banger. 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 Hot fire is another fun term. I think it was made popular by Chappelle's Show with that Dylon guy and the Sean Diddy Combs thing where I spit hot fire.
Who are the 5 best rappers of all time? Think about it. Dylon, and Dylon. Because I spit hot fire.
I could be wrong though. Maybe it came from earlier though. But it basically means a great song, right? Or you're spitting hot fire, you're doing a crazy verse, right? But in DJ terms, I played nothing but hot fire, or this crate I have is all hot fire. All these songs are hot fire. Just means it's just really, really good songs. Really, songs you'd want to play. Build up in our world usually refers to like a build up in a track where like the BPM may build up or the energy may build up. It's just basically, something building up. And when it comes to mixing and stuff, it's just something to consider, because if you're, if there's a build up in the song, you want to consider like, it's going to be lower energy until it gets the higher energy, and it affects your time and all that stuff. So, if you're a DJ, there's a build up in the middle song, it just means that, there's going to be some type of change of energy or BPM or both in the middle of that song. A breakdown can mean a bunch of things. I mean, if you're listening to metal music, breakdown is basically when they just, dun 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 dun. they go into a breakdown where it's like just a portion of the song that usually doesn't have a lot of lyrics, and it's just like an instrumental portion of the song. Same thing with like non-metal music, funk or rock, or a breakdown could be just like the bridge of a song or a solo, or some part of the song that's not the verse or the chorus. A breakdown could also mean what happens when you mess something up at a wedding or at any gig, right? When I mess something up, I pretty much have a breakdown on the inside, so it's that too. A drop in a song, not to be confused with dropout, which were like the song we talked about earlier where it would just cut out altogether. A drop usually refers to like an EDM breakdown kind of thing where like, the main drop hits, the main beat hits of the EDM song, the climax of the song, that's typically the drop. So if someone's like, hey, bring that in on the drop, like drop that shit, or I played this drop into this drop. They're basically, it's an epic part of an EDM type of song, but there's other songs, I guess you could say technically sort of have a drop that's not technically EDM, but it's the epic climax blah of a song. There you go. the blah. And acapella means vocals only. So it's a music track that's vocals only. Instrumental means just music only. So it's a music track that has no vocals whatsoever. It's any type of music track just without any vocals. Stems is basically like a recording producing term that refers to like the individual parts of a song. If you hear a DJ use it a lot of times, it's like, oh, I got the stems for this song. That means they got the recording of the song, but they got it in separate tracks. So they basically got like just the drums, just the violin, just the piano, just the guitar, just the vocals, like, individual tracks. An intro edit is an edit that basically has an instrumental beginning, usually for 8 bars, maybe 16 bars, that is very useful when it comes to beat mixing. An acapella in edit or an acapella out edit just basically means it's an edit that has a song that starts with vocals only in the beginning or ends with vocal only at the end, or both. And it also is just a useful thing so DJs could be very creative with their mixing, and they could basically take like the acapella of this and put an instrumental underneath it, kind of mix it together so it sounds fluid. It's just a very useful DJ tool. A redrum is very similar to like an intro edit, but it's redrummed. So instead of having the original instrumental as the, intro in the edit, so it starts with the original instrumental, it actually, the whole song typically is redrummed and has like a stronger beat. A lot of times redrums are popular with older songs that like, were recorded kind of shitty and, you can't hear them too well. So like they'll put a redrum underneath to kind of give it a solid beat, keep it in time too, because a lot of the older recordings didn't, stay in time. They didn't use like a metronome back then. So it keeps it in time. It's all quantized where it's like in time. So, better for mixing, but it just has a stronger beat, like an 808 type thing in the background. Transition edit is an edit that goes from one song to another song. A lot of times transition edits will change BPM. So it'll be a BPM transition. So it might be going from like a 100 BPM song to a 128 BPM song, and it'll do it for you automatically within the edit. So it's like a smooth transition over a number of bars, to get to that next BPM. There's other transition edits as well. There could be like a wordplay transition edit that uses a wordplay that we talked earlier to transition from one song to another. There's tone play transition edits that use tone plays to go from one song to another, all built in. These edits are very popular with DJs who are looking for a creative way to transition from one song to the other, but they want it to be easy where they just play it and let it go, so they're useful for them. White label is an old term referring to vinyl, where back in the day, record companies will come out with white label records, which are basically promotional records. A song that hasn't come out yet, right? They would have white label versions of it. Usually it's unreleased records, and they would send out these white label promotional records to like radio station DJs and anyone else to kind of play it ahead of time or have it ahead of time, prior to a release. Cue or cue point or cue up a song refers to basically having the song paused at a certain point of the song. So when you press play, it's going to play at that point. Some people might say like, hey, cue it up at the chorus. That means start the song at the chorus. Cue points it's like a newer technology over the last, I guess, like 10, 15 years, where you can actually set different cue points in a song within your DJ program, so you can jump to different parts of the song throughout your mix, which has been super useful in mixing, something that's been like a great thing. Last but not least, we're going to talk about scratch terms. So I'm not going to like demo them out or anything. I did make a video of like all like, the scratches I use and how I use them and why I think they're useful and all that. If you want to check it out, it's right here. But, I don't demo all these scratches for sure, because like a lot of these I can't do. But if you want to see how they're done or whatever, feel free to Google the terms and it'll pop right up. I just basically want to give you guys the terms so when you hear these words, they're referring to different scratch techniques. So you got the baby scratch, which is basically a wiki, right? You got the chirp. You have stabs, right? You're not stabbing anybody. It's just a scratch technique. Crabs is done with 3 fingers or 4 fingers. Twiddle is similar to the crab, but only done with 2 fingers, super fast. Flares, you have orbitals, you have boomerangs or autobahns. They're combinations of other scratches, but they're very, very complicated, and there's a lot of steps to them and all that good stuff. And there's different combinations using the same words. There's like an OG flare, there's a 2-click orbital, there's a 3-click flare, there's a chirp flare, there's millions and millions of combinations. But basically, those are the main words to look for. I think I got them all. Yep, I did. I got them all. And that is it, people. That is all the terminology. Like I said earlier in the video, if I missed any, make sure you put it in the comments. Please like, subscribe, all that good stuff means a lot. I appreciate you for watching this, and I'll see you at the next one.